Well, let's pretend we're starting from the beginning now, which is like every moment, actually. So I just want to say again, good morning to everybody,
Good morning.
Good morning.
and to say welcome and thank you. And, I started uh, incorporating that with the various talks, and I thought, oh, that sounds so cliche. If you listen to meetings or whatever, people say, oh, thank you very much for inviting me. But really, thank you, Chris and Peter and Jane, for the opportunity, and for the rest of you, all of you, for showing up. And um, when I use that, maybe this is kind of the beginning of the talk, is that when we say good morning, welcome, and thank you, when you get up in the morning, it's a reminder for me when I get up, or in a moment, afternoon or whatever, I could say good morning. And I could welcome whatever thus comes. I could be in readiness or welcoming for whatever thus comes, and that it offers me a way of presence or an opportunity. Here I go, an opportunity for growing or moving into my intention, or a way of practice and a way of sharing it. And then kind of a thank you or a gratitude for whatever is thus coming. So for anyone who's really interested in practice, cultivating an open heart and open mind, finding a way to share whatever your intention or your practice is, saying good morning or greetings. It's not morning. Welcome and thank you. I could stop right there and see where we all go, but I'll probably add some more words. And I guess literally one of the things I discovered is that I'm really not a writer, which is a little problematic for giving talks. So I just want to speak to you about something that I hope makes a difference, and that's helpful in your daily life, that as I speak it makes a difference to me. And really, I don't know if it's going to be helpful or, or even beneficial. And now, over some years, what I've discovered, and maybe many of you have as well, is that we don't really know what's going to be helpful or beneficial. Sometimes someone will come back to you days, weeks, months, or even years later and say, you know, that they said to me, that really mattered. So actually being present for our body, speech, and mind is beneficial to us. Now, some of you or everyone has come out of sitting and some keen heen. And I'm not sure what happens to you once you stop or finish with your sitting. So maybe just for a second, if this is not true for you, you could return to finding your sit bones and finding how that supports you. And are you balanced? Are you leaning forward? Are you trying to lean into what I'm saying, or trying to get away from, or trying to grasp? But just sit your sit bones and check your spine. I notice that I kind of want to lift. I want to put my hand here at my chest and kind of lift so I'm open. And then being receptive. I'm not really trying to get anything, but kind of the yogic practice. The zazen, our zazen is like a yogic practice of joining our heart, mind, intention, and the way that we want to move out of and into the action of body, speech, and mind. So these sit bones, your spine that supports your neck and your head, You can check and see what you're doing with your hands. Are they just resting in your lap? Are they in the cosmic mudra? And if so, is there enough space in that mudra for the universe to come and go? That this remembering or cultivating a kind of presence whenever and wherever you are, not just and only in the midst of zazen, or what we call zazen. So what I noticed at one point when I was offering zazen instruction for people who did not know what cosmic mudra meant, I put my hands in the mudra and then I put it up to my face like a diving mask. Hi, I see you. And then bring it down to our tanden, to our belly button. And then this was my discovery. You may already know this or have been introduced to this, but one thing after I introduced them to the Shashu mudra, I realized that it was just the cosmic mudra folded in on itself. So why would that be important? I'm able to use that when I'm standing in line at the grocery store, or sometimes when I'm watching the news, or if I'm in a hurry. So even though you can't be sitting right there, in your familiar, I'm going to use that word, familiar spot, you can always bring your hands together and put them in shashu and bring them back to your center so that you might use that as a location in the body, out of your mind into the body for what matters to you. So one of the things that, so I would be interested, I've heard through Chris that you all are possible conversationalists. And I'm interested in that because it helps us remind ourselves and remind each other. And my teacher, Tenshin Reb Anderson, who your teachers know, and also Chris, has been putting a lot of emphasis recently on conversation. So conversation is not only a conversation with beings, like the beings that I see on the screen, but when you meet your dog or your cat, or a tree, or a scene, a beautiful scenery, or the ocean. I mean, I could go on with more. Your breakfast, you're having a conversation, you're entering a conversation with that moment. And so a question for me was, how am I going to meet that conversation? How am I going to meet what it is that thus comes? What is it that's important? And so I've been focusing a lot more than on learning things, but on intention. And I'm using that intention as a way of infusing or seeding the field of mind. When the contents of mind arise, things that I could name, I might be able to use that field of mind that I have infused with the intention to meet it, to meet and greet or welcome. And my word that started some time back became imperturbable, imperturbability. And I was probably reading a koan or something, and I came across the word imperturbable, and I thought, well, I know what that means, but what else? So of course I investigated it, looked it up on the dictionary, and Then I went to the thesaurus and I created a little mantra. So mantra is another piece that I'd like to weave in today. And my mantra was imperturbable. No, it was calm, serene, imperturbable, unmoving. So a mantra is something that you repeat over and over and over again. And some of you may have a mantra, even though you haven't called it that. We're saying, I'm no good. I'm less than. This is no good. I don't know what to do. Anyway, whatever you have as your ongoing theme. But to give yourself to something that would be practice and that you would remind, because we're minding mind, we would remind yourself of the way you would like to be in conversation or meeting, whatever it is that thus comes. And just recently, I came up with the image when I was listening to some people in a conversation about, I got this image of a boat in the ocean. Does that bring anything to mind? Where no land is in sight. We're not going there. But a boat that has an anchor. And even though the boat is anchored, it can still respond to the waves in the water and to the wind that moves by, that flows by. So maybe whatever your intention or the way you would like to meet the world or the offering, the gift bestowing hands in practice, that could become your anchor. And then the things that come through, whatever thus comes, welcoming, is the way that your boat will respond with some kind of flexibility or movability. And part of the way, or a way of finding that important point, comes in stillness and in that field of mind. And it usually comes like an intuition or as a whisper. But if you're too busy, you won't be able to hear it or connect with it. Maybe you can hear it, but then it goes by. So you need to be able to connect with it. And so this word intention, it's somewhat invisible. There's an invisibility. I'm speaking it now, but our breath is invisible. And if the next breath doesn't come, it's sort of over. Gravity is invisible, but it really holds us to the ground. The electromagnetic field is invisible, but it has a force. And just now I'm reminded that when in Dogen, the Bodhisattva's Four Methods of Guidance, in the passage on giving, he says, when a person of giving, I think this is how it goes, a person of giving comes into a room, people take notice. So whatever that invisible field that you're wearing is noticeable. Just going to take a pause here, see how we're doing. You can hear me. I haven't disappeared yet. It's good. So, one of the people that I studied with in the past, maybe Peter and Jane remember Charlotte Selver. Do you remember Charlotte Selver?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. And she had a dance practice or something before she met her teacher, Elsa Gindler. And she wanted to, somebody suggested she check out Elsa, and she went to Elsa, and Elsa watched her move. And Elsa asked her So this is like an invisible thing, right? She said, do you have another practice? And maybe with some attitude, Charlotte said, yes, I do. I'm a such and such disciple. And Elsa said, go back to that. Please don't come here. So she did go back, but then she really wanted to study with Elsa. So the giver said, okay, you can be over there. And for 1 year, Elsa didn't say anything to her or acknowledge her. And after a year, she said, finally, the first fresh movement, first real movement. So I think there's a few things in that story. One is that being willing to be fresh and not to plan the next moment, but to be open to it and kind of readiness. And also that it took a year. Like whatever you're working on, it won't happen in a weekend workshop. And one of my favorite, kind of bridging to that, one of my favorite mantras is the one of Prajnatara. Maybe some of you will recognize it. And I use this a lot, quite often, is, okay, are you ready? Breathing in, not dwelling in body, mind. Breathing out, not involved in myriad. I recite this script 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 times.
I'm sorry, could you please say that again? There was a slight, uh,
We glitched.
yeah,
Okay.
slight glitch.
Okay. Breathing in, not dwelling in body, mind. Breathing out, not involved in myriad circumstances. I recite this scripture 100, maybe he said scrolls, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 times. So what are my question for you is up for 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 times and beyond. So this is attempt to be invitational. And maybe it's um, maybe it's too simple. You know, this might be simple. I'm not giving you kind of concepts to grab onto, but what I'm wishing for is that we drop into as an invitation to what matters. But not only just for this moment, but when you get up and do kinhin, when we take off our robes, when you go outside your door, when you get up in the morning and wash your face, what is it? And how do you understand, or do you have some understanding of the field of mind that we might be seeding, and what does it mean, the contents of mind? So those are some questions. And then I guess what I would like to hear is what works for you. This idea of mantra has become really powerful for me. And maybe we call it something different in Zen. I think mantra, maybe one of you can help me with this, but maybe mantra is mostly associated with Tibetan Buddhism.
Maybe Gata.
Gata, that's good, Chris. Yeah. But there is repetition going on in your mind. So what is it that you want to repeat? Yeah. So this not knowing is most intimate and most invisible, but it does have a field. It does have a wave. Um, and people notice, people take notice. And yeah, I had something here from Suzuki Roshi, but I think I feel like taking a pause right now and checking in first and see if any of this registered for you or was helpful. And if so, what? Or if you could ask me a question that might open it up a little more. And then I'll have a little closing caption. Yay, the first brave one. It's always the first one who's the bravest.
Doesn't mean I'm the smartest, but I'll jump in.
Boy, you get smarter.
I the impression I get from your talk is that it all leads to being in the moment, to
Yeah.
not judge or analyze or anything like that. And due to conditions, your intentions guide you as you go along. But if we really are in the moment, then we're not thinking about it. We're not analyzing it. We're not second guessing ourselves. We're just being natural, and that natural is very compassionate and loving. And that the hardest part is to quiet the internal dialogue so we can pay attention to what's going on around us.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know mantra, but one of the things I do is whenever I encounter somebody in a conversation, I want to leave them smiling when we finish the conversation.
You leave them
And
smiling. You
yeah,
smiling. Yeah.
yeah, it's a way of just giving them a little joy, and it may be silly, but it seems to be a way I adjust to being in the moment, paying attention to the conditions around me. And I'm not sure it's exactly what you were talking about, but that was what was drifting through my mind.
Yeah. Sometimes I have a similar experience about this leaving smiling. However, for me, so I'm interested for you, it comes because I've had a moment of contact and meeting. It's a moment of not judging, but we're actually kind of playing volleyball back and forth, and we both enjoy it. Otherwise, might not be a smile that comes from your heart. So I might have missed part of what you were saying, but I could
Well,
relate to it.
I'll bring up an example. I don't drive anymore. I've got physical disabilities, so I take a bus. And more than often, I'll have somebody, a total stranger, come up and sit down to me and just want to engage me in a conversation. And just, I hope I can add a little bit of, a smile, a laugh, or something to their life. And then we separate and go off our own ways.
Yes.
And I'm finding that this is happening more often where people all of a sudden just kind of say hi to me, total strangers, and they just want to talk, and I love talking, so it's like, okay, no problem. But I don't judge them, I don't analyze them. They may say something that I don't agree with, but I don't bring up anything, and it just, it gives it, I could see that they're a little bit happy that they're talking to somebody, and they make me happy to talk to
Right.
them. And I go on, and I find it's because I'm not mulling in my own thoughts or,
Yep.
worries or anything like that. I'm just there. And, something comes along, it's like, okay,
Yeah,
I'll deal with it.
that's great. Thank you. What's your name?
My name's Mike.
Mike. Hi, Mike. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for your talk.
A friend? Yes, Chris.
Oh, shoot, I didn't want
No,
to
no,
ask a question before you get a chance to respond.
uh, no, you go first,
Well, I was
please.
just going to ask, you mentioned intention,
Yes.
and you mentioned how it's sort of invisible, but like many invisible things, that it nonetheless has influence. But I was wondering, and I initially, when I thought of this question, I initially was like, well, don't ask that because it's kind of the answer is obvious. And I was like, well, I'm not actually sure that it is obvious. So let's see what Sonia says. And the question was, how much control do we have over our intention?
I don't, that's good. I don't think it's control. I think it's discovery, but it's the direction. That's how I feel about it. So I think intention, maybe when I say intention, I'm thinking about a quality of being, not so much of a doing. So it's a quality, we could say a quality of openness or patience or non-judging or curiosity. That kind of intention, kindness. You know, the smile is sort of a kindness. And a friend of mine, what I was going to say, has when she hears something that's kind of disagreeable or that she doesn't necessarily understand, she'll kind of put her hand like this and go, huh. So that creates a little gap before you have a reaction. So maybe I'm talking about this invisible intention is a medicine or an antidote to being reactive. So mine was kind of a, I'm not suggesting necessarily imperturbability, but I know not moving is part of our practice. But it comes from an inner agitation. So everybody has a different inner state that they're working with or might need attention. So where our intention helps us turn our attention to relationality. Was that too much of a word salad, Chris?
No, it's just the right amount.
That's a new thing now, word salad. Yes, Beth, please.
Hi, I'm Beth. It was fun to hear you talk about Charlotte Selver because my very best friend is a trainer in Selver awareness.
Oh,
Yeah, so he teaches internationally, and I'll have to ask him about her connection with Buddhism. So that will be fun to learn more about. But um, I don't know much about it. But the something that came up for me, and I do like words. So I'm so curious that you're talking about you were talking about this theme of conversation that's come up with some of the teachers, and so conversation, and something that piqued my interest is the difference between conversation and dialogue.
Mm.
uh,
Um, I'm curious about that, and then to link that, and I don't know, I'm just curious, but conversation and dialogue, and then what I'm hearing you talk about with the mantra is sort of a monologue, like an inner monologue. So I'm just curious about some of those relationships of what it means to exchange in a conversation, what it means to exchange in a dialogue, and then what's happening in maybe this inner monologue mantra space of
hmm,
repeated words, thoughts, feelings, concepts. I don't know. So that it's not really a question, but it was just something that
yeah,
shaped as a through line.
yeah. Well, that's really interesting. For me, and I think kind of along with theme. Am I frozen? No. Am I back? Yeah, okay. One of the things that I notice and that comes along with intention is that I think words have an energy and a field around them. So you could ask someone to shut up, right? That's going to sound like something, a command, or you could say, could you please pause for a moment so I for whatever reason. So I could digest what you're saying, or so I could get in the conversation. Different words have a different feeling around them. And I'd have to look it up. I just want to say that I have the feeling, this is a feeling tone for me, that conversation has more openness and investigation to it. And if I think of two people having a dialogue, it might be more like, anyway, I don't know. Yeah. I'm just feeling the words and which one feels more, yeah, I don't know. So that's interesting. And then monologue. It might be different for people on this screen, but I do have ongoing monologues going. And of course, sometimes I answer myself. So I think in terms of practice, given that that's what minds do, minds think that's their job, right? So the idea of what monologue do I want to engage in, or what, again, it's infusion of a quality of mind or a quality of being, because speak with or to ourselves does have a ripple effect or a wave effect. So do we have control? No. Do we have influence? I think yes. So I think of the monologue as something that's an influence, and I'm just feeling that word of inflow, right? Have an influence on our body, speech, and mind. And in terms of Charlotte, there was what she often referred to, and I think and when I was listening to Mike, this came to mind as well. She talked about readiness, not preparedness, but readiness. So a cat could be walking around in a very relaxed way, but it's ready at any moment to change course. So there's a readiness, and not a matter of knowingness, but a readiness. And I'm just with the cat now. The cat will have a direction, but something can happen and then it could shift direction right away. So having an intention might be a direction. It's not a fixed point. And when I was listening to Mike, I was thinking of this infusion. It's kind of like a jewel or a crystal. It has many facets. And then so the facets could be the various things that are coming up, various contents of mind coming up, but it just has this light reflection. So I'm trying to infuse my crystal with some kind of patience or imperturbability or not getting agitated. So the not probably is not so helpful as where I'm going. So that's the feeling that I'm trying to drop into this body and not trying to figure it out with my head.
Yeah, Jane.
Hi, thank you very much for your talk this morning.
Okay.
There were a lot of very good suggestions. I just wanted to mention one, not a mantra, but a kind of problem that sticks in my mind and has always been in there. It's not a monologue though, because it feels like it's a dialogue with somebody. I have no idea who, but whenever things are over rushing or too much to do, it comes up in my mind, nowhere to go, nothing to do. And it does feel like somebody else is in there talking about, don't forget. But I had one that lasted my whole life. It's been around for any time. It's called Any Port in a Storm.
What happens in that port in the storm?
Yeah, whenever things are getting tough, that's what always comes up in my mind. Well, any
Yeah,
part in a storm will do.
yeah. I think
And
that's
that also feels like a dialogue.
yes, that's wonderful, Jane. And as I hear you say that, that sounds like Prajnatara to me.
It's very, very pragmatic.
Yeah, it's like breathing in, not caught in this body, and breathing out, we don't know, but I'm not going to get caught in the circumstances, or in the outcome,
Yeah,
but to be responsive.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
great.
very helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
Um, Anybody else? I think yeah. Peter, you have some words for us today?
Oh,
For me?
I'm rather, I guess, a matter of fact person, and so my mantra, my current mantra is, whatever there is, do it.
Oh, yeah. I need you in my mind. Um, well, I think is noon when you're having your full moon ceremony?
There's no fixed time. It's just after the Dharma talk.
Okay. So, um, I think in line with all of this, one of the things that's important to remember and why, I don't know if it's why. I once heard by probably Peter and Jane, no Dido Lori. Anyway, he once was in a talk and he said, you notice in Zen, we don't ask why questions.
Mm.
And I thought, yeah, how come? And he said, it implies a dualism. There's some yes or no. So I thought that was interesting. So I don't know if this is why I'm following intention. Um, but let me go back now.
Jane.
Nope.
I
Nope.
want to mention one other thing in relation to the Charlotte Solar talk you gave.
Great.
I was thinking, in all the movements, one of them was real. That's like when in China, when someone apprenticed to be a painter, their first task was on a sheet of paper to put 5 dots.
Uh-huh.
And they would do this over and over again until one day the teacher would look at it and say, oh, okay, you have one. And the person would F that, look at it and try to figure out what it was.
Yeah.
But that would go on until the teacher felt that the person understood what a genuine, real dot without conceptions and ideas was on the paper. And I always thought that was a really good suggestion.
Okay. Y'all froze there for a minute. So the student looked and looked at all the dots and was wondering why. And
Why
did you
the
say
teacher
something else?
thought it was
Yeah,
unique, because to the student, usually they all look the same, but
right.
the teacher saw something real in it.
Yes. And it might have been the gesture that came to the dot as well.
It might have been that too.
Yeah.
Most likely, yeah, it was the head was not present.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
the hand and the brush were writing.
Yes.
Uh,
Just fully responding. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wonderful. She was
I
amazing.
always, yeah, it sounds, actually, the first time I went to Zen Center in San Francisco, there she was having a meeting with everybody. So I
Mhm.
met her that evening, and they had all this thing, and she gave me my first real koan actually, because we were sitting in groups of 5 and 6 people, and there was a little pile of things in the middle of the group, and we were told to look at everything and see the living quality of everything. And at the time, I looked at it and I thought, well, I can see the living quality in the piece of wood, the feather, the orange, but I couldn't see anything in the plastic red ball. And that disturbed me greatly for years. How could you see something living in a piece of
Yes.
plastic red ball? And somebody who came here was looking at my paintings and he said, you have a red ball in the middle of all your paintings. I didn't believe him, but he showed me there was a red ball in almost all the paintings. So the meditation was going on a lot deeper than I realized. And now I'm willing to give a living quality to a piece of plastic. But I always thought that was one of the sharpest things that ever happened to me.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I think that's very helpful. And you're reminding me kind of where I wanted to go, which is, in the blink of an eye, there's something like, I didn't look this up exactly. Maybe one of you know, there's something like 15,000 mind moments. And we catch, let's say, 400 or 700. So that there's a lot more going on in us and with red bowls. And I mean, what it took to make that plastic bowl is
Yeah,
kind of
well,
unbelievable.
I understand what she was trying to say about
Yeah.
everything, sentient and insentient was the same. And I was very carefully dividing sentient things between insentient things. And a red ball to me was just insentient. It took years for me to finally feel some peace with that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I just really appreciate your memories of that. And, all of us are so well trained in outsidedness, but not so well trained on insidedness. And so the Zazen is kind of tenderizing us and returning us. The saying, turn the light around. So we're looking at what's going on in here. Remember working with Charles once, and he had us outside some kind of experiment, and we were wandering around, and I'm looking around. This is my Red Bull moment, and wondering, when is something going to happen? Like, when are we going to do something? And finally, after lying in the leaves and just whatever we all were doing, we went back into the Wheelwright Center, and I sat up and I thought, oh my God, it's right here. It's happening all along, and I just didn't notice. So maybe that's true for some of you. I'm a little bit of a slow learner. Yes, please. Thank you.
Well, so one of the things I remember you saying back in 2018 was, I was asking you, because I was thinking about ordaining as a priest back then, and you had said something like one of the qualities a priest should have is that they are unflappable. And I ordained anyway, but I also
Peter,
recall,
thank you, Jane.
yeah, Jane. I also recall many times Reb using the word conversation to describe something that wouldn't seem at first glance to be a conversation, but it made sense, and I don't know how to explain why or how, but when I sort of just imagine him calling something a conversation, it sort of it turns it in a way that is nice. So I wouldn't say that being unflappable or very mindful, very demure is something that is a mantra for me. But what I what is, or what maybe occupies that same what takes that kind of practice. One way in which my practice manifests is in keeping an open conversation with, what does it mean to be a priest? Can I be a priest if I'm not unflappable? If I'm easily flapped, and not answering it one way or the other, and also just, I don't know why, but I'm very tenaciously hanging on to the notion that I'll just to keep going, and one, I might be less flappable than I think I am, and two, even if I'm not, that's okay, and three, just let the practice work, and yeah, this is one example of where I see faith playing a role in our Buddhist practice. I have faith that something is happening that I can't see, and maybe others can see it. Maybe one day I will see it, but that is a place where the faith has a role to play in my Zen practice. I mean, it doesn't typically come in because all of our various Abrahamic upbringings kind of leave us with a particular feeling about what faith means. But this is one for me. So that conversation is a mantra for me.
Yeah. Maybe faith is kind of invisible as well, but it does give you energy. It does give you stick-to-itiveness. It does give you, energy to keep going. Inspiration. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking that conversation is kind of an inner dialogue too. About insidedness and outside, we're having inner conversions. Really, I'm seeing you all in my mind. I think you're out there, but anyway, so the conversation is how I'm interacting or interbeing with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if there's something that someone hasn't said that would like to say something, please do. Otherwise, I'm going to give you a closing verse.
I think that would be.
Mitch,
Oh, Mitch.
hello. Did I freeze?
Mike, Mitch.
Dang.
Thank you.
There.
Sorry about that. But I've never heard the saying, turn the light around. Is that something you said? Turn
I did.
about internal and external, turn the light
The
around.
light around, that's Zazen. Turn the light around. When we're sitting, you turn the light around.
Yeah, it's from Genjo Koan.
Yeah. Do you,
Just a reflection of the internal rather than the external.
yeah, turn yourself. Yeah. And what's happening is really happening inside here. So turn the light around and watch what's happening over here instead of what's going on out there. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's just a saying I've never heard before. That's
Huh.
Thank
Do y'all chant? Do you chant the Genjo Koan?
No, not the judge. No,
Okay,
I do
Check it out.
the Heart Sutra mostly.
I see. Oh, he's got it on his arm. Talk to Chris.
I don't know what it means or how to do it, but it seems relevant.
You think chanting the Genji is a good Genji koan? Is Genjo koan?
I think that would be great if we did more chanting of. And actually, when I was searching for page 3 of the full moon ceremony, I came across multiple different chants, including Genjo koan, which were marked up with bells. I didn't know that they were there, so I'm going to try and diversify our chants.
Or maybe it would be an interesting just to read it and study it together for a session or something.
We did that once. So
Huh. Yeah.
Once is never enough with Dogen.
So, along with intention and mantra, I'm just going to keep going with this. It's been and also not knowing is most intimate. So not knowing is most intimate. Not knowing is closest, right? We don't know. Wasn't sure how this would all go. We don't know. And you don't know where the ripple effect will be. But along with that, in terms of practice, I would like to close with a verse from the Lotus Sutra. And so the verse from Prajnatara is very short, and you can recite that. That's a teaching in there. And now this one is from the Lotus Sutra, chapter 25, I think. Okay. Eyes of compassion, observing sentient beings, accumulates an ocean of blessing beyond measure. Eyes of compassion, observing sentient beings, accumulates an ocean of blessing beyond measure. You could see that as eyes, meaning each of you, I, me, myself, with compassion, serving beings, accumulates an ocean of blessing. So we do that with ourselves, for ourselves, and for the benefit of all beings. Thank you so much for letting me have this conversation with you.